Okay, welcome everyone. I'll turn the focus mode so that we have more focus. This is a monthly meeting where we aim to encourage each other on our journeys on financial discipleship. Most of you know what Compass is, but still I'll spend a few minutes to help us better understand. We are a financial discipleship ministry, and for many years, we taught what the Bible says about money and possessions and how we can steward our resources in a godly way. So we realized that we don't only teach people, but we want to see real transformations. That's why we are a financial discipleship ministry. And in many of our meetings, we speak about finance. So we realized that we need to also at least talk about discipleship. So this is why the topic of this evening's session is on discipleship. And to encourage each other, I want to share a short video with some testimonies of how these courses, our teaching has helped some people to experience transformation. You'll see a video recorded in the United States in a rehabilitation center. Our partners there did a training with some men who are going through difficulties, and you can see how God worked in their lives.
This is the stomping ground for people that need change, that need help, that need compassion, that need mercy, that need grace. And the Nehemiah House is just a beacon of light.
So I'm Jeremy Burton. I'm the director here of Client Resident Services. I'm also a graduate here. So we're really just, we're a refuge for people that are hurting, that are lost.
Nehemiah House is a center for men that have either been on drugs or alcohol. It's an addiction center, helping them get their life straightened out.
It's a place for men to come and get restored, and then to eventually at some point get back into be a productive member, especially for the kingdom. That's what we lead guys to. So that's the Nehemiah House.
My name is James Perez. Everybody calls me Jimmy V. My role is I'm an operations manager here at the Nehemiah House. I personally came from the Nehemiah House from jail. I caught a break from one of the first times in my life. Somebody believed in me in the jail and sent me here, and off a suggestion I came here open-minded and willing.
I came here in 2013, and I just realized I wasn't living life how he had it planned and how it was supposed to be lived, and just had a real awakening that there was more to life than how I was living. So as I grew up, I learned to chase money as an object and as a thing that makes you a man or makes you a somebody. So I had a skewed vision of money. Going through Compass, I really realized that money is just a tool that God has given us, the resources, and that we're supposed to use it in the right way.
I would say that 50% of the people don't know about Christ. They're just there because it's a study going on and I'm there, so I might as well go into the class. You know, and even at the beginning, hey, whether you believe in Christ or not, I'm going to give you life skills that is going to help you when you get out, you know, how to balance a budget, how to keep up with your debt management.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're working for God, well, you wouldn't want to slack off. You know what I'm saying?
One thing about the Compass that I noticed is it's real simple. It's a simple roadmap. There's not a lot of complications to it. My wife, she's good with money. She's better than I am, and going through this class, it's helped us together grow together financially. But it's given me confidence in my life to be able to do my part and help our family budget and be good stewards of our money.
I wasn't a Christian when I came to this program, but by the time I went through the Compass, I was on fire. I had been chipped away at, I had been baptized, so I wanted to know more. If it had to do with life skills and it was biblical, I wanted to know because I wanted to live different. Even if you get just that one nugget out the class, you learned something, you got something. So just pay attention, sit back, pay attention, because it could change your life.
See how much difference you'll make in your workplace. And it made a big difference in my day, that day for sure. So that.
Just super grateful that people are willing to invest and to help somebody they don't even know. But the thing is that their contribution is impacting someone's life right now, and it's making a change. Somebody who's lost, now they're found. And it's a community thing. We have to do it together because this world's tough, it's hard. And so I would just say thank you for being faithful to the call to give and to help organizations like us.
So this is a short summary of what we do. We try to meet people where they are, take them through our program, through the teaching, get them in a small group, and help them experience this transformation. And it's not only about the money, it's for the transformation and for the heart. And this is why tonight we will talk about discipleship. During this evening, you will have the opportunity to raise your questions. So type your questions in the Q&A. You see if you're on a computer, it's in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a tablet, it's in the top. If you're also on a smartphone, it's on the top. And at the end, you'll have time to answer your questions. And now I want to introduce a very dear brother to me, Emmanuel to Andrea. When I think about discipleship, the only picture that comes to me is the picture of Emmanuel. And when I think about Emmanuel, I think about discipleship. You hear more about him, but he's really, his heart is in it, and he's done a lot in this area. And he has helped many people in this. So I really wanna give the words to him and ask him to share what is on his heart. And I pray that we will really be able to have better vision for what discipleship is and how we can implement it in our ministry. So Emmanuel, up to you, brother.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Maybe good morning for some of you. I'm so thrilled and so honored to be with you tonight. And indeed, I'm not saying this just to be polite. Pavel has been a dear brother who came into my life through the European Leadership Forum and encouraged me several times in some key moments in my life. So thank you for this ministry, and I treasure each one of you, setting aside a time like this on a Tuesday night after probably a very busy day work, and I'm sure your time is very, very precious, and I'm so excited and so thankful because discipleship, growing into maturity, if you set aside this time, this means this is deep on your heart too, and I pray the Lord will bless you. I love way more to be in the same room, to be in person than online. But tonight, I'm happy that I'm online with you because I got a very severe cold, and I trust the internet is not spreading the virus, so you are safe. Let me share my screen too, and so the title of tonight's talk is From Theory to Practice, Real-Time Discipleship in Action. Now, I invite your questions, and I know there is a lot of wisdom in this virtual room, as I know dear brother Jolt and others. So feel free to step in, feel free to unmute, and we can share together and learn together. Tonight's webinar will be divided into two parts. The first part aims at grounding us into the biblical truth about discipleship and growing into maturity. The second part is more into how to, some practicalities some lessons that I learned over these years in this wonderful ministry. Um, Let me ask you first, what are some of your expectations when you saw this announcement and about this Zoom Cafe at Compass? And again, I love the ministry of Compass. When I was fresh, newly married, I went through a class on financial discipleship with Compass, and it really, really opened our eyes and helped us avoid debt, which was, and this is a short testimony from me. At that time, so I married in 2002. It was a time when the prices were going up, and most of people in my generation said it's wise to take a mortgage because all the prices into housing are going up, and I have so many of my friends who have been kind of a slaves in the last 20 years, just trying to pay all the mortgages because interest rates went up, and you know all the story and what happened in 2008 in my generation. So I've been blessed by Compass. Yeah, thank you. What are some of your expectations? Would you like to type into the chat some of your answers? I would love to see um, and know how to go on tonight. Um, so feel free to type. Okay, no worries. I think I started too abrupt with this, but feel free to write later, and I'll come back. Now, the vision of discipleship, I think it's so beautifully crafted and expressed by Apostle Paul in Colossians chapter 1, when he says, Him, speaking about Christ, Him we proclaim, warning everyone and teaching everyone with all wisdom, that we may present everyone mature in Christ. For this I toil, struggling with all his energy, that he powerfully works within me. I underline, I set in bold that sentence in the middle of these verses when it says that we may present everyone mature in Christ. This is the vision of making disciples, growing people in Christ, learning Christ. Now, there are many wonderful quotes that we can use tonight, but one that stood out for me is what John Stott says in his well-known book, Basic Christianity. And it's an illustration that I think all of us who are married can very well understand. You can become a Christian in a moment, but not a mature Christian. Christ can enter, cleanse, and forgive you in a matter of seconds, but it will take much longer for your character to be transformed and molded to his will. It takes only a few minutes for a bride and bridegroom to be married, but in the rough and tumble of their home, it may take many years for two strong wills to be dovetailed into one. So, when we receive Christ, a moment of commitment will lead to a lifetime of adjustment. Both me and my wife, we are firstborn in our families. And I remember how much we laughed on our wedding day when our siblings, younger siblings, got to know each other and were talking to each other about all that they suffered because of their older brother or oldest brother or oldest sister, my wife. And after all this laughing, they looked at each other and said, let's see how their marriage will go, because these two strong wills now will have to submit to each other. So when we receive Christ, a moment of commitment will lead to a lifetime of adjustment, as John Stott says. Another great man of God, Bill Graham, he said something like, salvation is free, but discipleship cost you everything you have. We know salvation wasn't free for Christ. He paid such a price for us, but for us is grace, undeserved grace. But discipleship costs us. It's a calling to give everything to Christ. Another passage that, and here I would like to stay a little bit more, is Ephesians chapter 4. Now, Ephesians, it's a letter of Paul which shows several transformations like this. Chapter 2 tells us how we were dead in our trespasses, in our sin, but then as Christ raised from the dead, he raised us to a new life in him. Now, chapter 4 has another view, an interesting way how Apostle Paul presents this transformation. And let me quickly read this passage. It says, and I use this diagramming, just I feel it shows us the steps, the process much more clearly. It says, you must no longer walk as the Gentiles walk, in futility of their minds, darkened in understanding, separated from life of God through hardness of heart, resulting in sensuality and impurity. You did not learn Christ in this way, but heard uh, about him and were taught in him to put off the old way of life, corrupt in its desires, to be renewed in the spirit of your minds. Put on the new self, created after God, in true righteousness and holiness. Now, if I, shorten a little bit and just extract the ideas, this is how this call takes us to the transformation. The passage starts by depicting, showing us the old life, the sinful life. And it's a command not to walk in the old way, because that sinful life was caused by unrenewed minds and resulted in much sin. And we've seen in Ephesians and in other letters of Paul the sin that, it's present in the same way today. But, and I love this word in the Bible. Every time when we find this word, but, it means that, everything that was said until now, it might be true, but now it's a huge transformation. And what it said afterwards, it's the new result. It's something that overcomes everything that was before. And then Paul said, but we started to learn Christ. And as we are learning Christ, we put off our sin. If our sinful life resulted in sin, now we put off our sin. Why we were sinning? Because our minds were not renewed. Now, as we learn Christ, our minds are renewed. And we are not walking anymore in the old way because we are a new creation. And all this, walking the old way, goes through an amazing transformation. And we see, as we've seen in this introductory video, we see new creation, new people walking and thinking. Their minds are renewed, and then their actions are renewed. I love also this quote from C.S. Lewis when he says, the church exists for nothing else but to draw men into Christ, to make them little Christs. And isn't this interesting? Apostle Paul in Ephesians, in the passage that we have just read, says that we are called to learn Christ. Usually, at least in my language, when we use the verb learn, we speak about learning some theory, learning some lessons, learning some history, learning some, theology, or learning some skills, acquiring some skills. This is the only place where I found this idea of learning a person, learning Christ. And it's so beautiful as C.S. Lewis is putting now things and says, let us become little Christs. If we learn Christ and renew our minds and think like Him, walk like Him, make decisions like Him, this means we are little Christ. Christ manifests His life into the world today through His bride, through His church, through us, little Christs. Now, I would like to stop for a minute and ask you to let me know if you envision, if you would be asked to define what is a mature Christian, how a little Christ look like, um, how do you hope or do you envision your disciples to become this transformation to be seen in their lives? How would you describe the profile of a disciple person? Stephen Covey, well known in the business world also, but he's a Christian, has this principle: whenever you start something, begin with the end in mind. So what is the transformation that you would like to see in the character or in the thinking of a disciple person? Um, Again, turn off your microphone or type in the chat. I would love to see some answers. How would you define a mature uh, Christian? Yeah, I'm seeing some answers. Uh, Christless, Christlikeness, yes. To be like Christ, to learn. Humble, servant-hearted. Wonderful, wonderful. A person that steps out in love. Mhm. And I love that Apostle Paul in Philippians uses this illustration of growing into love as a mature, as an illustration for a mature person. And it's interesting that either Afstein or Apostle Paul, they don't define love for God, love for people in the church, or love for my friends, or Christian friends, or love for the world, for the lost people. And I think all this is true. So I love your answer. Willing to sacrifice, yes, yes. Dietrich Bonhoeffer speaks in his discipleship book about a call to die for Christ, ready to serve, someone questioning himself, yeah, always searching his heart. I think this is what Rita says, questioning himself, someone who's willing to search his life, sincere, and change his life. Um, Humble, Anna says, obedient to the will of God, yes. A lifestyle that is integral, and the same in Christian and non-Christian environment. Yes, same on Sunday, same on Monday. Richard, becoming more like Christ in word and deed, compassionate, and committing to help others to become more like Christ. Wonderful. Thank you so much for all the answers. Here are some of the answers that I got in from my group. Someone who, again, and I think they mirror what you said, loves the Bible, loves God, loves his wife and his children more than his career. This is a sensitive issue. I'm more into, I mean, in the last 15 years, more into discipleship for young couples and for married people. So this is why you see some of the answers and some of my illustrations that have to do with families. Because in my generation, materialism is creeping in so much and I'm in Eastern Europe, I'm not in the West. I know Christians in the West faced this long time ago, but this is happening in our place too. And someone who values his family, passing the baton of faith and discipling his children more than his career. Um, I think it's a special thing and very important. Discovers his spiritual gifts and is committed to serve the local church, gives sacrificially, and here Compass helps a lot, is a good professional in his area of work, never will be afraid of a difficult and honest conversation. And some of you have mentioned, questioning, searching our heart, being humble, actively searches for ways to glorify God in all aspects of life, takes wise decisions in life. And all of these, if we think of all the areas of transformation we would like to see, of course, spiritual life, ethical life, character, integrity, truthfulness, work ethics, which is a huge topic in Eastern Europe. And I think in Africa, I see our dear brother there, because we come from out of communism, and corruption is a big issue. And I think we as Christians have an amazing opportunity to be a witness of transformed life in the area of ethics, of work ethics, and community life, our family, our church, our neighborhood, and even civic duties. Now, there's another quote that really touched my heart. And when we speak about discipleship, perhaps pastors should imagine, and don't think that, I mean, this is how the quote is, but I wouldn't say it applies only to pastors. To marketplace leaders, I think it equally applies. Perhaps pastors or disciple makers should imagine that they are going to have 3 more years in their parish, or in your work, in your job right now, or in your organization right now. 3 more years, and that there will be no replacement for them when they leave. If they acted as if this were going to happen, they would put the highest priority on selecting, motivating, and training lay leaders that could carry on as much as possible of the mission of the parish after they left. The result of the 3 sustained years of such an approach would be quite significant, even revolutionary. And here I must give my testimony. It was revolutionary for me. I was in ministry, and I was so active in so many initiatives which, I don't know, filled the programs of the church. And you could see all this activism, in creating programs, rehearsals, church choirs, camps, but not searching, not paying attention on making disciples, meaning growing spiritually, my youth. And my heart grieved when I saw some of the youth in my youth ministry were making wrong decisions, were um, going to university and suddenly losing their purity, or even losing their faith, some of them. In that moment, I realized, and I questioned myself, what was missing in the foundations of this youth? So when they went into the real world, they lost their purity and they lost their faith. And I realized that I have a limited time with them, and I need to root them deeply in the Bible, in the spiritual disciplines, and in the wisdom that comes from above. And I would end this first part of the talk with a model that I think Christ showed us. And I'm going to Mark 3, when he appointed the 12. First of all, we see Jesus invested in a few. He appointed 12. Now, Jesus knew that he has a limited amount of time, and he could run crusades with speaking to thousands, and he did. Uh, but if we look carefully to the Gospels, we discover that his time invested in multitudes is very little compared to the time he invested in a small number, in the 12. He spent a lot of time alone with the Father. Then he spent much time with three disciples that he took with him in different mission trips, in different experiences with the Lord on the Mount of Transfiguration, in his long prayer times, in his devotions with the Father. Then he spent much time with the 12, and they saw where he lived, how he uh, lived all his life in the ministry. Then he spent time with 72, a bigger class that he equipped and sent them into missions, and then debriefed with them as they came back from missions, and then also went and spoke to the multitudes. Isn't it interesting that in modern day discipleship, we go much more um, on a funnel like this on the left side. We try to speak to multitudes, and then come and invest in a few, and spend much on our time in creating programs, big conferences, glamorous events, which are very attractive. And to be honest, even in my position, pictures from this kind of events uh, are very impactful, in fundraising and in all this. But I realize it's just a few drops that goes away to thousands of people. Jesus' strategy was an upside funnel. He spent much time with few to equip them, to grow them into maturity, so they then have a multiplying impact into the world. So he invested in few to benefit the many. Um, he was actually with them. The Bible verse continues saying, he appointed 12 that they might be with him. It's interesting. I'm sure Christ knew that at the end of his ministry, he wants to establish, to found the church, and the 12 to be the apostles, and to build the church, and to entrust all the ministry on their shoulders. But he said here, the verse says the verse doesn't say he appointed 12, so he entrust his ministry to his 12 successors. No, no, no. His first goal was that they might be with him, spend time with him, see his life. And then this is how transformation happens. Not just explanation, but demonstration. And again, a personal experience. I work in an university with students, and when I travel, even if I go for half of a day somewhere, or just 1 hour, or just have lunch, I tell you what, the time I spend in the car, or at lunchtime, or in a mission trip with a few of my disciples is way more impactful than sitting in class and just teaching. Demonstration is very, very important, because he wanted them to be actually with him. And then he sent them out to be with him, that he might send them out to preach. Um, I think I would like to pause now and ask you to take some time to reflect. We will out rooms, um, share one reflection from what you have just heard, and then try to answer what strikes you the most about Jesus' method of making disciples.
Okay. I will first paste the questions in the chat.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then we'll put people randomly in breakouts. You have 15 minutes, and then you receive at the end a notification for 60 seconds left. And when you get together in your small groups of 4 or 5, please spend short time to introduce each other, because many of you probably don't know. So a minute or two to introduce, and then reflect on the questions. And when we get together, you have time to share from each group. Okay, everyone should be back now. I hope you had a good time. Anyone wants to share? Please feel free to unmute yourself and share some main insights from your discussion. If there is a volunteer, please unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'll need to point someone.
Well, I can say a little bit about from my breakout room.
Yep.
My name is Hafstedt, and I was with Richard and Nacho. And one thing that we talked about was what Nacho mentioned, that Jesus spent 90% of his time with the disciples. 90% of his time was spent investing in those 12 disciples that he had. And so that's something to think about. And we also talked about whether we today are discipling someone formally. We talked a little bit about that. I mean, we're teaching people a lot. If you're middle-aged and you're, Bible-based and all that, you're teaching people around you and bringing people to Christ. But none of us are doing it formally, having disciples around us that we have actually sat down with and said, I want to disciple you. So that's something to think about. We are not doing that today. And maybe that's a takeaway from me. I should do it formally. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I just want to appreciate Brother Hafstein, transparency and openness, to say this. May the Lord bless you.
Peter Haustuk, I saw you in 2 different rooms. I wonder how this happened.
I don't know. I thought I'm only in one.
Okay, anyway, maybe you can share from.
All right. Yeah, we had a great discussion. It was definitely very inspirational, Emmanuel. Thank you. Many of us had a very strong shift in our thinking and about the approach that we try to make disciples until now. Me personally, I felt relief because until now I tried to approach hundreds of people or thousands, for example, through social media, etc. But now I understand that I don't have to really focus on many people, but I need to wait for those that God will bring into my life. We also had a time to discuss how do we find these people. So these would be people who are open for relationship with us and in that group, in that smaller group of the disciples, who are willing to learn. So we tried also use this time to practically find out how to build, these possible disciples that we want to spend time with. And last idea I want to share is that that it gives us also, as Jesus did, willingness to influence others by doing, not only by words, by preaching, but also living a life like Jesus would. And this is the way we also teach them to become disciples. Thank you.
Amen.
Alexandre Jouvet, would you like to share from your group?
Yeah, I can. I just had a question that everyone wonder about when they have just a short time to live. Is like, oh, if I had to do the main thing now, I would do just a few disciples. And my question was, why don't we start right away? Because it's always the right time to do the right thing, right? And to go this way rather than to go for the crowds. And I was also thinking maybe Compass, we got a flip or funnel strategy upside down. Like, what if we go for the one? And because we go for the one, he goes for the next, and so on, rather than, teasing, teaching, training and transforming like as an outcome. If we flip this funnel upside down, that would be like finding the one that's a potential multiplicator and see what the outcome would be. If we believe it what was just said, and for me, it challenged the whole thing.
Yep. Thank you. We need to think about how this will happen practically. Okay. And maybe Jolt, if you could share.
Many things has already been said, what we have been discussing, but I think we all have been shocked by the model of Jesus. I got already some training on ELF on this. I had the opportunity to participate on this disciple making year on mentoring, which was great for me. Changed completely my way of thinking, but I think it's all we were convinced that this is the right model. We were talking about a little bit the role of the leader in this, and how you can select people you focus on, and how you can be intentional, and generally how you must be intentional in discipling anybody who is around you, starting with your children. If you have children, for example, that's one of the most important area of your life.
True.
We also like the upside down funnel. And as Alexandria, I was also thinking about how we can rethink the compass funnel model. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jolt. Thank you. Back to you, Emmanuel.
Well, thank you, brothers and sisters, and I would dive now more into the practicalities. Some of them are based on my experience, so feel free to question. But first, I would like to call you to a few decisions, and I think you already mentioned them. You need to decide if in your ministry you want to build a big name, to be very popular on social media, on anything, or you are willing to work in small groups, to influence a small number, and then entrust this to the Lord. And maybe the Lord will, make you a big name, but not to have this at all in mind, because this will change definitely dramatically the way you will take decisions when you will have a new initiative, a new invitation on your plate. So I'll share this more in the end. I'll show you a picture. But one thing that really touched my heart was a key moment. After I learned this principle, I've been invited. I mean, a good friend of mine, uh, worked for me, let's say, and he promoted me as to be the key speaker in a youth conference, a big youth conference in Romania, about 1,000 students. And this conference conflicted with precisely the time that we decided to go on a mountain hike as a retreat with my small group. And I struggled. I wanted to be that big speaker. It was my opportunity to go on the stage. At that moment, I had never have before this kind of opportunity. But God really, really touched my heart and said, "Hey, you are preaching, you're telling others that you have to follow Christ's model and invest, as you said, 90% of your time into these people, and you prepared this retreat. You should, stay with them." And I fully encourage you to read the book of F.F. Bruce, Training of the 12, when he makes a strong point on this. So I refused, and I stayed with my group. Now, as I look back, I see how many times God blessed my life through that small group who grew in Christ. And today, after 12, 13 years, they are mature in their churches, and we have a very, mentoring, very deep relationship, and they are all fruitful. This brought a lot of joy and multiplied joy over the years. I could be on their wedding days. I could be there when they went through suffering and struggles and problems, and I could rejoice in their ministries way more that glamorous, that big event that I missed. So you have to make this decision. Now, I'm not saying that big conference are not wonderful places where your heart is really encouraged, and I encourage you to allocate that 10% to this kind of meetings, and Christ did. But to be steady, to be faithful in your small group. If I would select 100 pastors in my country, and I'm not trying to speak negatively now, but it's a reality, and I would ask them to quote from memory Matthew 28, Jesus' last command to make disciples, I'm sure 99% of them will quote it from memory without any mistake. Then if I would ask them to name all the 12 disciples of Christ, I'm pretty sure 90% of them will name all 12 very well. But then if I would ask them to name their disciples today, I think this would be a struggle. So you have to make this decision. Are you now investing in a small group more and search for their spiritual growth, for their growing into maturity? This leads to our next decision, short versus long term. Now, spiritual growth doesn't come quick. It's not a 6-week training class, and then here we are, mature children, mature students, mature families, mature. No, 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 no. It's a long term. It's resilience on long haul. It's going with them through bad decisions that they make, and you suffer, and you say, "Oh, what have I done?" But you go with them through all of this, and by God's grace, on long term, they grow. So in 3 years' time, in 2 years' time, you will see a difference. And then last decision, are we building our own kingdom or God's kingdom? And this strikes a sensitive chord in my heart because I'm in the students ministry mostly and young couples, as I said. And this generation, you might invest a lot in someone, and in 3 years' time, he leaves your church because he moves with his job in another city. And I was like, my kingdom, I invested, I grew up them. I want them now to multiply in my local church, in my ministry, in my campus. But I had to face this decision. It's not my kingdom. It's not my own, ministry. It's God's kingdom. And God is sovereign to move people in other places and let them multiply in another place. Now, some practical things, as I said, how to start. Start with prayer. Um, I'm sure you know this, but I think we need this reminder. Think of how Christ started his discipleship group. He spent the whole night in prayer. Uh, Now he's the all-knowing God. He's omnipotent. He knows everything. He spent all that time in prayer. Brothers and sisters, prayer makes miracles. And I believe that if we intentionally take time to fast and to pray for our next group, for our disciples, God will point us to the right people. God will open our eyes to see the people that maybe God already set around us, or to open our eyes to see the opportunities when we see someone who's available, who's teachable. And I think this is a way to screen, to pre-screen, like people in recruiting do, to see who's available, who has the time and is teachable, is willing to learn. And then I think very powerful are personal invitations. In my church or in my campus, I can make an announcement in the chapel or in a conference. It doesn't really work. I think the best is to meet personally with each of your future disciples and make a personal invitation and tell them the cost, tell them the what they commit to. Um, for example, if I told to some people, you will have to memorize some Bible verses. I can't do this. I did this when I was in high school, but well, if you tell them in advance, usually they are willing to commit much more than if you add these requirements afterwards, and then stick to a small group of 3, of 4, of 6, how God leads you, define these expectations, and make the challenge then, and invite them to start. If men and women are not married, I fully advise to have specific groups only for men, only for women. If they are married, my advice is take them together. Even if along the way you will have special meetings only with men, and your wife or your husband will meet with the men or with the women. But I saw that having the family together, it works very, very well. Um, the car illustration maybe for Greg Ogden, another book that I fully recommend, Discipleship Essentials. Um, People usually are very much afraid to multiply because they say, I don't have this gift of teaching, I don't know what to teach. But if you have a driver with a good vehicle and a map, a good GPS, you have a successful journey. What I mean by this, you have an intentional leader, you are this leader who builds a bridge of relationship with your people, and then you have a good curriculum. It doesn't have to be something very deep theological. It will scare people at the beginning. We hope that our disciples, as they grow spiritually, they would like to go deeper in the future. But at the beginning, take a curriculum that is, biblically has good principles, but it's a bit easier to transfer, to give them courage to do that class or that curriculum with their future disciples. And then let me list some of the ingredients that I believe are very important as you start your group. First, I would mention Bible study. Uh, I'm seeing today in our evangelical landscape a lot of groups that are just socializing, and they have a little bit of Bible there. Well, I think if the Bible is not central, we lose the point of growing. We have to learn Christ. Now, I don't mean by this not having a time to socialize, time to build our relationship, uh, but the Bible has to be the primary focus. So, out of my, let's say, 75 minutes meeting or 90 minutes meeting with my group, I should have more than 50%, maybe 75% of the time dedicated to the Bible study. And then prayer. Some people need to learn how to pray. And in a small group, they have this courage and the hearts are much more open. Then I recommend leadership rotation, having after a few weeks, letting the people in the group to lead the next meeting. This gives them confidence for their future group. It's the springboard to multiplication. If they have this experience already in a group that they feel safe. I usually go with a group about 2 years. I try not to go more than 2 years because then it becomes, more of a social group. But it takes about 6 months for people to really open their hearts. Women, they open their hearts much faster, but men do not. Based on my experience, it takes sometimes a year to build that trust, to be accountable, and to open and search our hearts and really, confess and repent. And but when this happens, when this relationship environment gets to this point that people are open, start this leadership rotation. Encourage everyone to participate. Don't let only one or two monopolize all the discussion. Bring some humor. If the Bible study is just a serious thing, I think I think you understand what I mean by bringing some friendliness there, some openness, and be flexible. In my part of the world, in Eastern Europe, people are usually afraid to commit to something like 1 year or long. Usually, I ask them just for 6 or 8 weeks, and then as they taste the beauty of the fellowship in a small group, I ask them to commit for 1 year. In Romania, at least, if I tell a man especially, that he has to commit for 1 year, nobody or very few would commit. But if I let them taste for a few weeks, then they usually commit for 1 year. But even if they commit for a weekly meeting, or in case of a family discipleship, usually we meet every other week. For a family, if they start to have small children, it's very hard to meet every week, but every other week it's possible. But even in this rhythm, flexibility is important. So I had one of my dear friends. He came to Christ through us, and now he was married, and he was in our group. And suddenly, the day we were supposed to meet, the company who brought wood for heating for his next winter came and brought all the wood and just pull it up in the front of his house, and half of the street was covered by his wood. So this is illegal, and he needed to put all the wood inside. 20 cube meters, so not easy. So this would mean for him maybe about 5 or 6 hours of work. So he just texted us and said, I can't join the group tonight. And I said, why? And he shared this with me. So I quickly texted and private to all the members of the group and said, hey guys, tonight no Bible study. Tonight we're going to put the wood inside. And everyone came there, and it was the night that our group just glued, just they became friends. And this man, he never ever missed another group meeting because we were flexible in that moment and helped with the wood. And I ask also for discipline. And again, I speak now to Eastern Europeans. I don't know how is in your part of the world, but in my country, we believe that the Bible is incomplete. It should have one more verse. By brothers, be punctual. It's quite hard to be on time, to start on time, to end on time. And, starting late, it wouldn't be a problem in my context, but ending late, it's a problem. When you are married, or even if you are not married, to have meetings that prolong, makes people not coming on long haul, because then they feel that shame to always say, I need to go, I need to, and to be the first one who breaks the group and leaves. And I think it's important for us as leaders to have this ingredient in place. We start on time, we end on time. If it prolongs with those who want to stay, but we call the meeting when it's time. Some poisons, and I would end with this. Boring Bible study. If you thought, what is the sin that cannot be forgiven? I tell you what, this is the sin that cannot be forgiven. A boring Bible study. We need to prepare, and we need to pray for creativity and make the Bible study lovable, something that people desire more. Discussions without substance, to let people, to let the discussion go in different directions. And at the end of the time, you didn't cover the principles or the things we wanted to talk about. It's very easy to happen this in a group. Persons which monopolize the discussion, I think they are a poison. We need to be very careful. And in every meeting, every member of the group has to say something, has to contribute. Lack of honesty or reality anchoring. I think it's a poison if we try to paint a picture where we as leaders, we are perfect. We always do our spiritual disciplines. We always, and then people in the group say, "Oh, he's like a saint, and I will never be like this." I think a part of vulnerability is very important to help the others open, and then being anchored in reality. When pandemic hit, the fear of death was there, and we needed to address that instead of, I don't know, speaking about eschatology or any other topic, which would be interested, but see where the people are. And here I want to point something important, and I think Brother Hafstein just raised the ball for me. There is a danger after being in this ministry for a number of years to become just a coach or a making disciple makers and starting just to teach about. I made a resolution in my life with my wife that even if I teach others how to make disciples, we will always have at least one active group in our lives. In this way, we are connected to the real life, and we go with people through this, and we will not just become people who teach theory, but see what's happening in the lives of our students or in the lives of our young couples in the church. Avoid criticism very easily, again, in my context, very easily. A group meeting, after a while, after people start to taste the beauty of the fellowship in a small group, and they start to understand deeper the Bible, to start to criticize pastors or church leaders who are not doing discipleship like we do, or who are not providing opportunities like, I think this is a big poison. Teach the people to love their local church and to multiply and to do this in their place, but without any criticism. And then food. And here I hope you will understand me well. In many contexts, serving food at the small group meetings is fine. But what I noticed in other parts is that food becomes a problem. What happened in my context? So as we served food, we served, some sweets, this week. Next week, as we meet in the house maybe of someone else, another family, they thought, oh, if Emmanuel gave us some chocolate, I think people are coming from their work. They must be hungry. So let me do some sandwiches. The third week, the family that hosted us said, "Oh, he had sandwiches. I think I should have some cakes." And you get the idea. By the sixth week, we would have a full meal, and suddenly two families stop. They didn't come, and they didn't say the reason. And only after I, you know, pursued to see what happened, I realized that food became, or these meals became a burden. And young couples, they don't have much money. Students have no money. So let me say this disclaimer. Food is very important in student ministries. Students, you know the definition of a student. Uh, 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 um, uh, how this a piece a small piece of meat stretched over a huge hunger. So students need food. It's beautiful to serve them in this way, but with families, with adults, I think it's a danger there. And it also can take a lot of time from the Bible study if we stay much. Again, if it's the birthday of someone, or if it's a special moment, you can do this. I would end with my story. I grew up in a Christian family, and I even attended a Christian high school. And if you would be our pastor, I think you would have loved to have us as your youth group, because we were always present at youth meetings. We loved being in the church. But something happened as we graduate high school and we then went to other cities for our university, for our student life. More than 0.5% lost their purity and lost their faith. And then I questioned myself, as I said earlier, what happened? Why our faith didn't have the strong foundations? And I realized that we were part of many activities, but we never learned how to study the Bible, how to feed ourselves. We never learned the character of Christ. We never, you know, learned how to, have our devotional time. Um, Things that you might think they're basic. And then I realize growing into maturity doesn't mean my role as a youth pastor or as a youth minister in a campus is not only to entertain and to organize sports competitions, and these are fine and I love them, but with my small group, with my disciples, my goal is to learn Christ with them. And I think this happens with the ingredients that I mentioned. This photo is one of the most dear photo to my life. I joined my first church in 2008. It was an aging church. This is why the church invited me, because it was only mostly with older people. And this group are the families that joined and came to Christ in the 7 years that I spent on this church. From this picture, only 3 people were in the church when I joined the church. How this happened? It was not me. It was the grace of God, and it was through small groups that we started. Went for 2 years. They invited others. We went, and along the lines, they got married, they started having children, and the Lord, blessed this ministry. This is one of the retreats we had. You may recognize some of them. I invited them with me at ELF if you had there. And this is one of our last group of families. So discipleship means investing long time and maybe sometimes not seeing fruit. But on the long haul, God will give you much joy seeing young people, how they grow into maturity and take wise decisions in life. May the Lord bless you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. That's very important. We have one very good question which I want to ask, and it is, how do I make the leadership above me understand that I'm more oriented to small groups while they're more for the big events?
Ooh, tough question. I've been in such environments. First of all, yeah, pray, and please don't try to criticize or anything. It goes nowhere. It will just start a war. And I think, just start to um, talk about discipleship time to time. If you have the opportunity to preach or to address time to time there, insert messages about this, plant seeds and wait. It takes time. It takes time. Start with one group. So that picture that I showed you, it was in the 7th year. It didn't happen in the 1st year. It didn't happen in the 2nd year. So start small, and eventually over the years, over 7, 10 years, it starts growing. But it takes time. And try to invite some of these leaders in your small group. If one or two of them are willing, invite them to be part of your small groups. Some of the leaders I noticed, they never experienced the beauty of a small groups or an accountability group. As they will experience, they will become your advocates in this. But this happens over long time. It counts in years. So wait, years for this. It's not something that happens after a weekend conference when we present discipleship. My father, I was very frustrated at one point that people don't get this vision and this beauty. And my father looked into my eyes and said, "How long it took for you to understand this?" And at that moment, I said, yeah, I've been in ministry for over 10 years and I didn't understood this. And then my father said, well, if God was patient with you, be patient. And I had to learn this lesson.
Thank you very much. I'm tempted to ask one last question. I know our time is over, so if anyone can't stay anymore, feel free to leave. But the question is, I know that in your curriculum, you have dedicated a lesson for what the Bible says about money.
Mm-hmm.
If you could share, why did you decide to include in your discipleship curriculum such materials, and what specifically do you cover in it?
Oh, it's critical. And I think some of the people in the audience now can answer much better than myself. But the truth is that we cannot serve two masters. And I've seen so many, as in the example I have given through during the break to you, Pavel. I have a dear friend who is much more gifted than I am. He's a wonderful speaker, very deep. But in 2008, right before the crisis, he took a mortgage for his house. And when we last met, he was crying. He's a man, but he was crying because he said, I've been married for 20 years, but I've been at home with my wife, with my children, at most 5 years. Because he went into this debt, he could not pay right now, and he needed to go abroad for work, and the tragedy is right there. So I think stewardship of money, materialism, teaching about this, and helping people make wise decisions, it's critical. They won't be fruitful in the long run if they go into this slavery, or if materialism catches their hearts, as young as it possible, please do speak about these topics. Ideally before they get married, but even after, as soon as possible. And then they will, if they take wise decisions in this will lead in a lot more freedom for ministry in the future.
Thank you very much, Manu. That's very helpful. Just at the end, I have two very short announcements. One is that we are having a course which is making financial disciples. So you're invited to come to sign up for it. We can offer discounts, and I'll paste the link in the chat. And the next ZoomCafe is in 1 month's time, in May 21, and many of you requested that we continue the topic of raising our children and teaching them on how to manage money. So we continue with Brian Holtz, our global CEO, and he will speak on more practical aspects of how to teach children on financial discipleship. So you're very, very welcome to sign up to this.